Dr. Amelia Washington turned her silver car onto Maple Street, the same route she had taken every Tuesday for the past 3 months. The quiet neighborhood looked peaceful in the afternoon sun. Children played in front yards while their mothers watched from porches. She was driving slowly, being careful as always. Her mother lived just 2 blocks away, and Amelia was bringing her groceries and medicine. The blue and red lights appeared in her mirror suddenly. Amelia looked at her speedometer. She was going 25 miles per hour in a 30-mile zone. She checked her seatbelt. It was on. She tried to think of what she might have done wrong, but nothing came to mind. She pulled over to the curb and turned off her engine. Her hands remained on the steering wheel where the officer could see them. This was something she had learned during her military training. Always keep your hands visible. Never make sudden moves. Stay calm no matter what happens. Detective Marcus. Rivera stepped out of his patrol car. He was a big man with thick arms and a red face. His uniform was tight across his chest. He had been a police officer for 12 years, but he still felt angry most days. Angry at criminals, angry at his job, angry at people who did not respect him the way he thought they should. Rivera walked to the driver's side window. Amelia rolled it down and waited. She kept her hands on the wheel and looked straight ahead. "License and registration," Rivera said. His voice was harsh and unfriendly. "May I ask why you stopped me, officer?" Amelia asked. Her voice was calm and polite. She spoke clearly, the way she always did. Rivera felt his jaw tighten. He did not like questions. He especially did not like questions from people who should. Just do what they were told. "I said license and registration," he repeated, louder this time. Amelia nodded slowly. "I understand. I will get them for you. I just wanted to know the reason for the stop." She reached carefully into her purse, moving slowly so the officer could see everything she was doing. Her license was in her wallet, and her registration was in the glove compartment. She handed both documents through the window. Rivera looked. At the license, Dr. Amelia Washington, age 42. The address was in a nice part of town. The photo showed a woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile. Rivera looked back at the real woman sitting in the car. She looked exactly like her picture, but something about her made him uncomfortable. "Your car matches the description of a vehicle used in a robbery this morning," Rivera said. This was not true. There had been no robbery that morning. Rivera had stopped her because he was having a bad day and she was driving too carefully for his liking. People who drove that carefully were usually hiding something. Amelia turned to look at him for the first time. Her dark eyes were steady and calm. "What was the description of the vehicle?" she asked. Rivera felt his anger rising. "Silver sedan," he said quickly. "There are many silver sedans in this city," Amelia said. "Could you be more specific? What year, what make and model?" Rivera's face grew redder. This woman was asking too many questions. She was not acting scared enough. Most people he stopped were nervous or afraid. They apologized even when they had done nothing wrong. But this woman sat there like she was in charge of the situation. "Step out of the vehicle," Rivera ordered. Amelia remained calm. "Am I under arrest?" "Just step out of the car," Rivera said again, his hand moving to his belt. Amelia knew she had rights. She knew the law. During her 15 years working with Delta Force, she had studied many things. She understood how power worked and how people used it. She could see that this officer was angry and looking for a reason to use his authority, but she also knew that fighting would not help her right now. She had learned to pick her battles carefully. This was not the time or place for a battle. "I will step out," she said quietly. "But I want you to know that I believe this stop is not legal." Rivera's eyes flashed with anger. "Are you a Lauer?" he asked sarcastically. "No," Amelia replied as she opened her car door. "But I know my rights as a citizen." She stepped out of the car with careful, controlled movements. Her business suit was clean and pressed. Her shoes were practical and comfortable. Everything about her appearance said that she was a professional woman going about her normal day. Rivera looked her up and down. She was not very tall, but she stood straight with her shoulders back. There was something about the way she carried herself that reminded him of soldiers he had seen. It made him even more angry. Turn around and put your hands on the car, he commanded. Am I being searched? Amelia asked. What is the probable cause for a search? Rivera stepped closer to her. Lady, you are really starting to get on my nerves. Do what I tell you, or this is going to get a lot worse for you. Amelia could smell coffee and cigarettes on his breath. She could see sweat on his forehead even though the day was not very hot. This man was not in control of himself, and that made him dangerous. Officer, she said calmly, I have done nothing wrong. I was driving under the speed limit. My car is properly registered and insured. My license is valid. I have been polite and cooperative. Your attitude is the problem, Rivera snapped. You think you are better than me? Amelia looked directly into his eyes. She had faced down terrorists and enemy soldiers. She had made decisions that affected national security. She had saved lives and protected her country. But she had never looked down on anyone for their job or their position in life. I do not think I am better than anyone, she said. I just expect to be treated with basic respect and dignity. Rivera's hands were shaking now. This woman was making him look foolish, and he hated it. In his mind, she was everything wrong with people today. Too educated, too confident, too willing to question authority. From her kitchen window, Mrs. Chun watched the scene unfolding on the street. She was 70 years old and had lived in this neighborhood for 30 years. She had never seen a police officer stop someone on this quiet street before. Something about the situation worried her. So she picked up her phone and started recording. 2 houses down, teenager Marcus Johnson also noticed the police car. He had his own reasons for not trusting police officers. His older brother had been arrested 3 times for crimes he did not commit. Marcus opened his bedroom window and started recording with his phone, too. Rivera noticed neither of them. His attention was completely focused on the woman standing in front of him. This woman, who refused to be afraid, who asked many questions, who looked at him like he was the one doing something wrong. Turn around now, he said through gritted teeth, or I will turn you around myself. Amelia took a deep breath. In her work with Delta Force, she had learned to read people quickly. She could tell when someone was about to lose control. This officer was very close to that point. She needed to be very careful about what happened next. She turned around slowly and placed her hands flat against the top of her car. I am complying with your request, she said clearly, making sure her voice would carry to anyone who might be watching. But I want it on record that I believe this search is unlawful. Rivera began searching her roughly, his hands angry and aggressive. He found nothing in her pockets except her phone, some tissues, and a few dollars. This made him even more frustrated. What he did not know was that the calm, dignified woman he was harassing had spent the last 15 years protecting the very freedom he was supposed to serve. He did not know that she had risked her life for her country dozens of times. He did not know that some of the most dangerous people in the world had learned to fear her quiet intelligence and unshakable courage. All he knew was that she was not afraid of him, and that made him very, very angry. Rivera finished searching Amelia's pockets and found nothing. This should have been the end of it. He should have given her a warning and let her go. But his anger was growing stronger with each passing minute. The woman had not apologized. She had not begged. She had not shown him the fear and respect he thought he deserved. Step away from the car, he ordered. Amelia turned around slowly. Her face was calm, but her eyes were watchful. She had dealt with dangerous people before, but this was different. This man had a badge and a gun, and he seemed to think those things gave him the right to do whatever he wanted. Officer, you have searched me and found nothing, she said. May I have my license back so I can continue on my way? Rivera looked at the license in his hand. Then he looked back at her. What do you do for work? He asked. I work for the government, Amelia replied. This was true, though she could not say more than that. Her job with Delta Force was classified. She could not tell anyone the details of what she did. Government, huh? Rivera said with a nasty smile. What kind of government? Work? I cannot discuss the details of my job, Amelia said. This answer made Rivera even angrier. In his mind, she was being snooty and secretive. She was acting like she was too important to answer his questions. Cannot or will not? He asked, stepping closer to her. Amelia could smell his sweat now. She could see a vein pulsing in his forehead. She had been in dangerous situations many times, but those had been with trained soldiers and professional spies. This man was something different. He was unstable and unpredictable. Officer, I've answered all your questions that I am legally required to answer, she said. I would like my license back, please. Rivera's hands clenched into fists. You would like? He repeated mockingly. You would like? Lady, you are not in a position to be making demands. From her window, Mrs. Chun watched with growing worry. She had seen the officer search the woman, and now they were just standing there talking. But something about the officer's body language frightened her. He looked like he was getting ready to hurt someone. She called her neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez. Maria, are you seeing this police stop outside? Yes, I am watching too, Mrs. Rodriguez replied. Should we call someone? I do not know who to call, Mrs. Chun said. He is the police. In his bedroom window, Marcus Johnson was still recording. He had learned from his brother's experiences that having video was important. Police officers sometimes lied about what happened, but cameras did not lie. Back on the street, Amelia was trying to stay calm. She could feel the situation getting worse. In her military training, she had learned to recognize when someone was about to become violent. All the signs were there with this officer. What is your badge number? She asked politely. Rivera's face turned dark red. What did you just say? I asked for your badge number. I have the right to know who is detaining me. Rivera stepped even closer. Now he was only 2 feet away from her. You have got some nerve, he said in a low, threatening voice. Amelia did not step back. She had learned never to show fear to bullies. Fear only made them stronger. I am not trying to cause trouble, she said. I just want to know your name and badge number in case I need to file a report about this stop. File a report? Rivera shouted. File a report about what? About being stopped without probable cause and searched without reasonable suspicion. Amelia replied calmly. Those words hit Rivera like a slap in the face. This woman was talking like a lawyer. She was using legal terms and acting like she knew the law better than he did. In his 12 years as a police officer, he had gotten used to people being afraid of him. He was used to people apologizing and trying to make him happy, but this woman was different. She stood there like she was his equal, like she had every right to question him and challenge him, like his badge and his uniform meant nothing to her. You think you are smart? He said through gritted teeth. You think you can tell me how to do my job? I am not telling you how to do your job, Amelia said. I am simply exercising my constitutional rights. That was the final straw for Rivera. The word constitutional made something snap in his brain. He saw red. Without thinking, without planning, without any control at all, his hand flew through the air. Crack. The sound of his palm hitting her cheek echoed down the quiet street. The slap was hard and sharp. It turned Amelia's head to the side and left a red mark on her dark skin. Mrs. Chun gasped from her window. Oh my God, he hit her. Marcus Johnson's hands shook as he held his phone steady. I got it, he whispered to himself. I got it on video. Double quotes. Mrs. Rodriguez came running out of her house. I saw that. I saw what you did, she shouted at Rivera, but Rivera was not listening to the neighbors. He was staring at Amelia, waiting for her reaction. Part of him expected her to cry or scream or beg for mercy. Part of him expected her to fight back so he could arrest her for assaulting an officer. Amelia did neither. She slowly turned her head back to face him. Her cheek was burning and beginning to swell. She could taste blood in her mouth from where her teeth had cut her lip, but her eyes remained steady and calm. That was a mistake, officer, she said quietly. Her voice was not angry. It was not scared. It was simply factual. Like she was commenting on the weather or stating an obvious truth. Rivera felt a chill run down his spine. Something about the way she said it made him suddenly afraid. But his anger was still too strong to let him think clearly. Shut up, he said. Just shut up and get back in your car. Amelia wiped a small drop of blood from the corner of her mouth. I want your name and badge number, she said again. I said shut up, Rivera screamed. He raised his hand again, ready to hit her a second time, but something stopped him. Maybe it was the way she was looking at him. Maybe it was the neighbors who were now gathering on the street. Maybe it was some small part of his brain that realized he had already gone too far. Mrs. Chun was on her phone now, talking rapidly. In Chinese to someone, Mrs. Rodriguez was shouting in Spanish about calling the news stations. Marcus Johnson was still recording everything. More neighbors were coming outside, Mr. Peterson from across the street, the young couple from the corner house. Even old Mr. Williams, who never left his house, was standing on his porch watching. Rivera suddenly realized that he was surrounded by witnesses. His heart started beating faster. His mouth felt dry. What had he done? But it was too late to take it back. The slap had happened. The sound had echoed down the street. The neighbors had seen it. The cameras had recorded it. Amelia reached into her car and pulled out her purse. From it, she took a small notepad and a pen. With careful movements, she wrote down the date, the time, and the location. Then she looked at Rivera's uniform. Officer Rivera, she read from his name tag. Badge number 4427. Rivera watched her write this information down. His anger was fading now, replaced by something that felt like panic. He had hit a citizen during a traffic stop. A citizen who had done nothing wrong. A citizen who knew the law and was taking notes. Get in your car and drive away, he said, trying to sound authoritative. But his voice cracked a little. Amelia finished writing and put her notepad away. I will be filing a formal complaint about this incident, she said. Nobody will believe you, Rivera said, but he did not sound confident. Any more. Amelia looked around at all the neighbors who were watching. She looked up at Marcus Johnson in his window, still holding his phone. She looked at Mrs. Chun, who was now talking to what sounded like a 911 operator. I think they will, she said simply. Rivera followed her gaze and saw all the witnesses for the first time. His face went pale. In his anger, he had forgotten that other people could see what he was doing. He had forgotten that everyone had cameras now. He had forgotten that actions had consequences. Look, he said, trying to sound reasonable, maybe we both got a little heated here. Maybe we can just forget this whole thing happened. Amelia shook her head. No, Officer Rivera, we cannot forget this. What you did was wrong, it was illegal, and it was caught on camera. She got into her car and started the engine. Through the open window she said, I suggest you call your supervisor and tell them what happened. Because I'm going to report this as soon as I get home. Rivera watched her drive away. His hands were shaking now. His career was probably over. His pension was at risk. All because he could not control his temper with a woman who asked too many questions. What he still did not know was that the woman he had just assaulted was one of the most dangerous people he would ever meet. Not dangerous because she was violent, but dangerous because she was smart, patient, and connected to people who had the power to destroy him. Dr. Amelia Washington drove to her mother's house with her cheeks still burning and her heart still steady. She had a job to do, and hitting her was going to be the biggest mistake Officer Rivera ever made in his life. Amelia sat in her mother's kitchen, holding an ice pack against her swollen cheek. Her mother, Dorothy Washington, was 75 years old and had seen a lot of things in her life. But she had never seen her daughter come home with a mark on her face from a police officer. Baby, you need to go to the hospital, Dorothy said, her voice shaking with anger and worry. I am okay, Mama, Amelia replied. It looks worse than it is. That man hit you for no reason, Dorothy said. In my day, we could not fight back against things like this. But you can, you have to, Amelia nodded. Her mother was right. She took out her phone and started making calls. The first call was to her lawyer, Sarah Chun. Sarah was one of the best civil rights attorneys in the city. She had handled cases like this before, though none involving someone with Amelia's background. Sarah, this is Amelia Washington. I need your help. What happened? Sarah asked, hearing something serious in Amelia's voice. Amelia told her the whole story. The traffic stop, the search, the questions, and finally the slap. Sarah listened without interrupting. "Do you have any witnesses?" Sarah asked when Amelia finished. "Several neighbors saw it happen. At least one of them was recording with a phone?" "Good. Can you come to my office tomorrow morning? We need to file a formal complaint and start building a case." "I will be there at 9, Amelia said. The second call was to her commanding officer, Colonel James Mitchell. She could not tell him everything about what happened, but she needed to let him know that there might be publicity. "Colonel, I have a situation that might affect my security clearance review," she said. "What kind of situation?" Mitchell asked. "I was assaulted by a police officer during a traffic stop. I am going to file charges. There might be media attention." Mitchell was quiet for a moment. He had known Amelia for 8 years. She was one of his best people, calm and professional in every situation. If she was filing charges against the police officer, the officer must have done something very wrong. "Do you need any help?" he asked. "Not right now. But I wanted you to know in case reporters start asking questions about my job." "Understood. Keep me informed." The third call was to her brother David, who lived in California. David was a journalist for a large newspaper. He had written many stories about police misconduct over the years. "David, I need some advice," she said, after she told him what happened. David was furious. "Amelia, this is exactly the kind of story that needs to be told. Police officers cannot just hit people because they do not like their attitude." "I do not want to become famous," Amelia said. "You know I cannot have my name and face in the news because of my job." "I understand. But there are ways to tell this story without putting your security at risk. Let me make some calls to reporters I trust." That evening, Marcus Johnson uploaded his video to social media. He wrote, "Police officer slaps woman during traffic stop on Maple Street. She did nothing wrong. This is not okay." The video spread quickly. Within 2 hours, it had been shared hundreds of times. People were outraged by what they saw. A calm, well-dressed woman being hit by an angry police officer for no visible reason. Local news reporter James Martinez saw the video on his Twitter feed. He had covered many police misconduct stories, but something about this one caught his attention. The woman in the video did not act like most people when they were stopped by police. She was too calm, too controlled, too professional. Martinez called Marcus Johnson and asked if he could interview him about what he saw. "That officer was out of control," Marcus said. "The lady was being polite the whole time. She never raised her voice or made any threatening moves. He hit her because she asked for his badge number." Martinez decided to investigate further. He drove to Maple Street and talked to the neighbors who had witnessed the incident. Mrs. Chen was still upset about what she had seen. "That poor woman did nothing wrong," she told Martinez. "She was respectful and calm. The officer was the one who was acting crazy," Mrs. Rodriguez agreed. "I have lived here for 20 years. We never have problems with crime. That officer had no reason to stop her and no reason to hit her." Martinez asked if anyone knew who the woman was, but none of the neighbors had ever seen her before. They knew she was visiting someone in the neighborhood, but they did not know her name. The next morning, Amelia met with Sarah Chun at her law office. Sarah had already begun researching Officer Rivera's background. "This is not his first complaint," Sarah said, showing Amelia a file. "He has been accused of excessive force 3 times in the past 5 years. The department dismissed all 3 complaints without any discipline." "What were the other incidents?" Amelia asked. "All involving minorities. A Hispanic man he claimed was resisting arrest. A black teenager he said was being disrespectful. An Asian woman he said was acting suspicious. In every case, there were witnesses who said Rivera was the aggressor, but the department believed his word over theirs." Amelia felt sick to her stomach. This man had been hurting people for years and no one had stopped him. "We are going to file both criminal charges and a civil lawsuit," Sarah said. "But I have to warn you, these cases are very difficult to win. Police officers have a lot of protection under the law." "I understand," Amelia said, "but we have to try." Sarah filed the complaint that afternoon. She also called the FBI and asked them to investigate whether Rivera had violated Amelia's civil rights. Meanwhile, James Martinez was doing more research into the incident. He had obtained a copy of the police report that Rivera filed. According to Rivera's version of events, Amelia had been hostile and threatening during the stop. He claimed that he had only used force after she attempted to resist arrest, but Martinez had seen the video. There was no arrest, there was no resistance. There was just a calm woman asking questions and an angry officer losing his temper. Martinez decided to dig deeper into Amelia's background. Her address led him to public records that showed she owned a house in an expensive neighborhood. Her car was registered in her name, and it was only 2 years old. She clearly had money and education, but what was her job? The police report said she had refused to answer questions about her employment. Most people would tell a police officer where they worked. Why was she being secretive? Martinez called a friend who worked for the federal government. "Can you look up someone named Amelia Washington for me? I think she might work for the government." His friend called back an hour later. "I cannot tell you where she works, but I can tell you that she has a very high security clearance. Whatever she does, it is classified." This made Martinez even more curious. He started making more calls, trying to find out what kind of government work required such high security clearance. Finally, one of his sources gave him a hint. If someone has that level of clearance and will not talk about their job, they probably work in intelligence or special operations. Martinez felt his excitement growing. This was not just a story about police brutality. This was a story about a police officer assaulting someone who worked in national security. He called his editor at the television station. "I think we have a bigger story here than we thought." 2 days later, Martinez's story aired on the evening news. The headline was, "Police Officer Assaults Government Employee During Traffic Stop." The story showed the cell phone video of the slap, interviewed the neighbors who witnessed it, and revealed that the victim worked in a classified government job. Martinez was careful not to identify Amelia by name or show her face clearly, but he made it clear that this was someone with high-level security clearance. The story exploded on social media. People were outraged that a police officer had assaulted someone who worked to protect the country. #JusticeForGovEmployee started trending on Twitter. Rivera watched the news story from his apartment. His stomach dropped as he realized that the woman he had hit was not just some ordinary citizen. She was someone important, someone connected, someone who could cause him serious problems. His phone started ringing. First his supervisor, then the police union representative, then reporters asking for his side of the story. Rivera's supervisor, Captain Williams, was furious. "Rivera, do you have any idea what you have done? The FBI is asking questions. The mayor's office is getting calls. This woman you hit is not some random person off the street." "How was I supposed to know who she was?" Rivera asked. "It should not matter who she was," Williams shouted. "You do not hit citizens during traffic stops, ever." Rivera was suspended pending investigation. The police union said they would provide him with a lawyer, but they were clearly not happy about having to defend someone who had been caught on video committing assault. Meanwhile, more information about Amelia's background began to leak out. Someone with knowledge of military operations told Martinez that she worked with Delta Force, the Army's most elite special operations unit. "She is one of their strategic analysts," the source said. "She plans missions that save American lives. She has been involved in some of the most important counter-terrorism operations of the past decade." When this information became public, the story took on a whole new dimension. This was not just a police officer hitting a citizen. This was a police officer hitting a war hero. Colonel Mitchell called Amelia that evening. "The story is out," he said. "People know you work with Delta Force." Amelia sighed. The FBI investigation began 3 days after the news story aired. Special Agent Maria Santos was assigned to lead the case. She had handled civil rights violations before, but never one involving a Delta Force operative. Agent Santos met with Amelia at Sarah Chun's law office. Amelia was professional and direct, answering every question with precise detail. She had brought a written timeline of events and copies of all the medical records from her hospital visit. "Dr. Washington, I have to ask about your military background," Santos said. "Some people might claim that you used your position to get special treatment in this case." Amelia shook her head. "I did not tell Officer Rivera who I was or where I worked. He hit me before he knew anything about my background. The only reason my job became public was through media investigation." Santos nodded. She had already watched the cell phone video dozens of times. There was no question about what had happened. Rivera had assaulted a citizen who was exercising her constitutional rights. "We are also investigating Officer Rivera's past behavior," Santos said. "We have found a pattern of excessive force complaints that were not properly investigated by his department." This was true. The FBI had discovered that Rivera's police department had a serious problem. Over the past 10 years, they had received more than 50 complaints about excessive force. Only 2 officers had ever been disciplined, and neither had been fired. Rivera's supervisor, Captain Williams, was called in for questioning. Santos did not hold back. Captain Officer Rivera had 3 previous complaints for excessive force. Why was he still on the street? Williams shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Those complaints were investigated and found to be without merit. Without merit? Santos showed him photographs from the previous incidents. This Hispanic man had a broken nose. This teenager had bruises on his arms. This woman had a black eye, all from encounters with Rivera. Those people were resisting arrest, Williams insisted. According to who? According to Rivera? Santos pulled out another file. "I have witness statements that contradict Rivera's. Reports in all 3 cases. Why were these witnesses ignored?" Williams could not answer. The truth was that the department had protected Rivera because he was aggressive with criminals and had a high arrest rate. They had chosen to believe his word over the word of citizens, especially minority citizens. "Captain, this department has a pattern of covering up police misconduct. That is a federal civil rights violation." Williams realized that he was not just there as a witness. He was being investigated too. Meanwhile, Rivera's personal life was falling apart. The police union had assigned him a lawyer, but the lawyer was not optimistic about his chances. "Marcus, you were caught on video hitting someone," the lawyer said. "There's no way to deny what happened." "She was being disrespectful," Rivera said. "She was questioning my authority. That is not a crime. Citizens have the right to ask questions during police stops. They have the right to know why they are being detained." Rivera's wife, Linda, was getting tired of the stress. Their neighbors were talking about them. Their children were being teased at school. She had married a police officer because she thought it would give their family respect and security. Now her husband was famous for all the wrong reasons. "Maybe you should just admit what you did was wrong," Linda said one evening. "Admit it," Rivera exploded. "If I admit it, I lose my job, my pension, everything." "You are going to lose all that anyway," Linda said quietly. "At least if you apologize, people might have some respect for you." But Rivera was not ready to apologize. In his mind, he was the victim. He had been doing his job, and now his whole life was being destroyed because one woman could not show proper respect for police authority. The investigation expanded when the FBI discovered that Rivera's problems went beyond excessive force. They found evidence that he had been taking money from drug dealers in exchange for information about police operations. Agent Santos called this information into her supervisor. "We are looking at corruption charges now, not just civil rights violations." "How deep does this go?" her supervisor asked. "We are not sure yet, but it looks like Rivera was not working alone." The corruption investigation revealed that several officers in Rivera's department had been taking bribes. They had been protecting certain drug dealers while arresting others. They had been sharing information about police raids and investigations. Captain Williams was arrested on a Tuesday morning. The charges included conspiracy, corruption, and violating civil rights under color of law. His arrest made the local news, and suddenly everyone realized that Rivera's assault on Amelia was just the tip of a very large iceberg. Meanwhile, Amelia was trying to return to her normal life, but it was not easy. Her face had healed, but the media attention had not gone away. Reporters called her house every day asking for interviews. Military personnel who worked with her were being questioned about her character and her work. Colonel Mitchell called her into his office. "Amelia, I want you to know that everyone here supports you completely. What happened to you was wrong, and you handled it with perfect professionalism." "Thank you, sir. I just want to get back to work. I understand. But I have to tell you that some people in Washington are very interested in your case. The Secretary of Defense has been briefed. The director of the FBI knows who you are." "This has become bigger than just a local police incident," Amelia sighed. This was exactly what she had hoped to avoid. Her job required her to stay in the background, to be invisible. Now she was at the center of a national controversy. "What does this mean for my security clearance?" she asked. "Actually, it might help it. You have shown that you can handle pressure and stay professional even under attack. Those are exactly the qualities we need in intelligence work." The pressure on Rivera continued to build. His corruption trial was scheduled to begin in 2 months. His assault trial would follow soon after. The evidence against him was overwhelming. His lawyer made one last attempt to negotiate a plea deal. "Marcus, if you plead guilty to the assault charge and cooperate with the corruption investigation, they might reduce your sentence." "What kind of sentence are we talking about?" Rivera asked. "For the assault, probably 6 months in jail and loss of your police certification. For the corruption, maybe 2 to 5 years in federal prison." Rivera felt sick. 6 months ago, he had been a police officer with 12 years of experience and a decent pension waiting for him. Now he was looking at years in prison and the complete destruction of his career. "What if I fight it?" he asked. "Marcus, they have you on video committing assault. They have financial records showing the bribes. They have testimony from drug dealers who paid you. If you go to trial and lose, you could get 15 years. Rivera's world was collapsing. His wife was talking about divorce. His children were ashamed of him. His fellow officers wanted nothing to do with him. Even his own mother had stopped taking his phone calls. The media coverage had shifted too. At first, some news outlets had tried to present both sides of the story. But as more information came out about Rivera's history of violence and corruption, public opinion turned completely against him. Veterans groups held rallies demanding justice for Amelia. Civil rights organizations used her case to highlight the problem of police brutality against minorities. Even police reform advocates pointed to Rivera as an example of what was wrong with law enforcement culture. Amelia watched all of this from a distance. She gave one carefully controlled interview to a military newspaper, speaking generally about the need for police accountability without discussing the details of her case. "Everyone who serves this country, whether in the military or in civilian life, deserves to be treated with dignity and respect," she said. "No one should be above the law." Rivera saw that interview on the news. For the first time since the incident, he really looked at the woman he had hit. She was not angry or vengeful. She was not trying to destroy him or get rich from the lawsuit. She was simply asking for justice. In that moment, Rivera finally understood what he had done. He had not just hit a citizen during a traffic stop. He had betrayed everything that a police officer was supposed to represent. He had used his power to hurt someone instead of protecting them. That night, Rivera called his lawyer. "I want to plead guilty," he said. "To which charges?" "All of them. I want to apologize. I want to take responsibility for what I did." His lawyer was surprised. "Are you sure?" "Once you plead guilty, there is no going back. I am sure. What I did was wrong. That woman did not deserve to be hit. The people I took money from deserved to be arrested, not protected. I became exactly the kind of cop that gives all police officers a bad name." Rivera's guilty plea made national news. In his statement to the court, he said, "I failed as a police officer and as a human being. Dr. Washington was exercising her constitutional rights, and I assaulted her because I could not control my anger. I have dishonored my badge and betrayed the trust of the community I was supposed to serve." Amelia was in the courtroom when Rivera made his statement. She listened carefully to his words, watching his face to see if his remorse was genuine. When the judge asked if she wanted to make a victim impact statement, Amelia stood up. "Your Honor, what Officer Rivera did to me was wrong and illegal." 6 months after Rivera was sentenced to prison, Amelia received a check for $2 million. This was the settlement from her civil lawsuit against the police department. She had never wanted the money for herself, but Sarah Chun had convinced her that making the department pay would send a strong message. "Money is the only language that institutions understand," Sarah had said. "When they have to pay millions for their officers' bad behavior, they start taking reform seriously." Sarah was right. The police department had already implemented new training programs about constitutional rights and de-escalation. They had hired an independent monitor to review all excessive force complaints. Most importantly, they had fired 3 other officers who had patterns of misconduct similar to Rivera's. Amelia sat in her living room, looking at the settlement check. She had already decided what to do with the money. She picked up her phone and called her brother David in California. "David, I want to start a foundation," she said. "What kind of foundation?" "One that provides legal help to people who are victims of police misconduct. Most people cannot afford lawyers like Sarah Chun. They get abused by officers and have no way to fight back." David was excited about his sister's idea. "That is brilliant, Amelia. You could help so many people. I want you to help me set it up. You know how the media works, and we will need publicity to raise more money." Within 3 months, the Dr. Amelia Washington Foundation for Police Accountability was officially registered as a nonprofit organization. Amelia used her settlement money as the starting fund, but donations began pouring in from veterans groups, civil rights organizations, and ordinary citizens who had been inspired by her story. The foundation's first case was helping Maria Rodriguez, a single mother whose teenage son had been beaten by police officers during a traffic stop. The officers claimed the boy had been resisting arrest, but witnesses said he had been cooperative and respectful. Sarah Chun took the case for free, with the foundation paying for investigation costs and expert witnesses. Within 6 months, they had won a settlement for Maria's family and gotten the officers involved suspended without pay. "This is exactly what we hoped would happen," Amelia told Sarah. "One case leads to another, and slowly the system starts to change." The foundation grew quickly. Within a year, they were handling 12 cases in 4 different states. They had hired 3 full-time lawyers and 2 investigators. Most importantly, they were winning cases and getting bad officers removed from the streets. Meanwhile, Rivera was serving his time in federal prison. The first few months had been very difficult for him. Other inmates did not like police officers, even former ones. He had been threatened and attacked several times, but slowly, Rivera began to change. He started attending counseling sessions about anger management. He read books about police reform and civil rights. He began to understand how his actions had affected not just Amelia, but all the other people he had mistreated over the years. Rivera wrote a letter to Amelia while he was in prison. He did not expect her to respond, but he felt like he needed to try to apologize properly. "Dr. Washington," the letter began, "I know that my words cannot undo what I did to you. I know that saying sorry is not enough, but I want you to know that I think about that day every single day. I was wrong to stop you without cause. I was wrong to search you without permission. I was wrong to hit you. Most of all, I was wrong to think that my badge gave me the right to treat you or anyone else with disrespect." He continued, "I have learned about the work you do for our country. I have learned about the foundation you started to help other victims like yourself. I am ashamed that a person who has sacrificed so much for America was treated so badly by someone who was supposed to protect and serve." Rivera ended the letter by saying, "I do not expect you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know that your courage in standing up to me has changed not just my life, but the lives of many other people. The officers who were fired because of the investigation, the policies that were changed because of your case, the people who will be helped by your foundation. All of that happened because you refused to be silent when you were wronged. Amelia read the letter twice. She could tell that Rivera's apology was sincere. She showed the letter to her mother, who had been following every development in the case. "What do you think, Mama?" Amelia asked. Dorothy Washington thought for a moment. "Baby, that man hurt you. But it sounds like he has learned something from it. Maybe that is worth something." Amelia decided to write back to Rivera. Her letter was short but kind. "Mr. Rivera, I received your apology and I accept it. What you did was wrong, but I believe that people can change and grow from their mistakes. I hope that when you are released from prison, you will find a way to make positive contributions to your community. We all deserve a chance at redemption." Rivera cried when he read Amelia's response. Her forgiveness meant more to him than he could express. 2 years after Rivera went to prison, Amelia returned to her full duties with Delta Force. The media attention had died down, and she was able to work in the background again. But her reputation in the military had only grown stronger. Officers throughout the armed forces knew her story, and they respected her even more for how she had handled the situation. Colonel Mitchell was promoted to general, and he asked Amelia to join his staff at the Pentagon. "I need someone who understands both military operations and civilian oversight," he said. "Your experience with police accountability makes you perfect for this job." Amelia accepted the promotion. Her new job involved working with civilian law enforcement agencies on counterterrorism operations. She used her position to promote better training and stricter accountability standards for police officers who worked with the military. The foundation continued to grow under David's management. They had helped more than 100 families win cases against abusive police officers. They had gotten 23 officers fired and dozens more suspended or retrained. Most importantly, they had convinced 15 police departments to implement new policies on use of force and citizen complaints. Rivera was released from prison after serving 2.5 years. He was a different man than the one who had gone in. Prison had been hard, but it had also given him time to think about what kind of person he wanted to be. He could not work in law enforcement anymore, but he found a job as a counselor at a community center in a low-income neighborhood. Many of the young people he worked with had bad experiences with police officers. Rivera used his own story to teach them about making better choices and dealing with anger. "I was a police officer for 12 years, he would tell the teenagers in his programs. "I thought that badge made me better than other people. I thought I could treat people however I wanted, especially if they looked different from me or came from different backgrounds. I was wrong, and my wrong choices destroyed my career and hurt innocent people." The young people were usually surprised to learn that their counselor had been a police officer, but they respected his honesty about his mistakes. "What I learned is that respect is not something you can demand," Rivera would continue. "Respect is something you have to earn. And you earn it by treating other people with dignity, no matter who they are or where they come from." One day, Rivera was at the community center when he saw a news report about Amelia receiving a medal from the Secretary of Defense. The report mentioned her work with Delta Force and her Police Accountability Foundation. Rivera watched the ceremony on television and felt proud to see how much good had come from such a bad situation. After the ceremony, a reporter asked Amelia about her assault case and what it had meant to her. "That incident taught me that courage is not just about facing enemies on a battlefield," Amelia said. "Sometimes courage means standing up for what is right in your own community, even when it is difficult or dangerous. Every citizen has the right to be treated with dignity by the people who are supposed to protect them." The reporter asked if she had any message for police officers who might be watching. "Most police officers are good people who do a difficult job with honor and integrity," Amelia replied. "But the good officers have a responsibility to speak up when they see their colleagues acting badly. Silence in the face of misconduct makes you part of the problem." Amelia's words were broadcast across the country. In police departments everywhere, officers watched the interview and thought about their own experiences with misconduct and accountability. 5 years after the assault, Amelia was promoted to colonel and given command of her own intelligence unit. Rivera had completed his community service requirements and was working on a college degree in social work. The police department where Rivera had worked had been completely reformed, with new leadership and new policies. Most importantly, the Dr. Amelia Washington Foundation had grown into a national organization with offices in 12 cities. They had helped more than 500 families get justice for police misconduct. They had trained thousands of police officers in constitutional rights and community relations. They had lobbied successfully for state laws requiring independent investigation of police shootings and other serious incidents. Amelia still lived quietly, still preferred to work behind the scenes.